Have you ever felt like the ground beneath your feet is shifting, leaving you stranded in a fog of uncertainty? It is in these exact moments of deep transition, when your old life is fading and the new one has not yet appeared, that the soul cries out for a compass. Today we are unlocking the timeless mysteries buried within the sacred scriptures, secrets that have guided lost travelers through the darkest valleys for thousands of years. You must listen to this entire message completely without skipping a single moment, because the wisdom hidden at the very end holds the master key to your breakthrough. If you leave too soon, you might miss the exact revelation meant to realign your path and heal your restless heart. Before we journey deep into these sacred truths, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the God's Command Hub channel. By joining our spiritual family, you ensure that you never miss the divine guidance meant to illuminate your daily walk. Let us quiet our minds now, open our hearts, and step together into the light of divine clarity. Imagine standing on the edge of a vast, trackless wilderness, where every path looks identical and every direction feels like a mistake. This is the heavy reality of a life transition, a sacred space the ancients called the desert of the soul. We often treat these seasons as punishments, believing that our confusion is a sign of divine abandonment. Yet, history shows us that the greatest transformations in human history always began in the terrifying silence of an unknown territory. The scriptures whisper a profound truth about these moments, suggesting that your current confusion is actually a holy setup. It is a deliberate stripping away of human reliance so that a deeper, unshakable certainty can be born within you. Consider the story of a man who had everything figured out, living in the comfort of a royal palace, only to find himself suddenly exiled into the wilderness. Moses spent 40 years tending sheep in a desert, wondering if his purposeful life had completely ended before it truly began. He felt lost, forgotten, and utterly disconnected from the grand destiny he once imagined for himself. But it was precisely in that place of total obscurity, far from the noise of Egypt, that the ordinary bushes began to burn with a holy fire. The transition was not a dead end. It was the essential training ground for a calling that would alter the course of human history. There is a specific biblical law hidden in his journey, a secret that explains exactly why your current confusion is a prerequisite for your ultimate destiny. This brings us to the first profound biblical secret, which is the law of the divine pause, beautifully illustrated in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. When the Israelites were trapped between a charging army and an impassable sea, the divine command was not to fight or to run, but to stand still. The scripture promises that the Lord will fight for you, and you need only to be still in the midst of the chaos. This stillness is not a passive surrender or a sign of weakness. It is an active, powerful alignment of your spirit with a higher frequency of reality. It requires you to silence the frantic demands of your ego, which constantly begs you to force an immediate outcome. When you practice this holy stillness during a major life transition, you stop wasting your spiritual energy on anxiety and fear. You begin to realize that the fog around you is not meant to blind you, but to force you to rely on a different kind of vision. It invites you to develop an inner eyesight, a deep spiritual intuition that feels the movement of the Creator even when the physical world is completely stagnant. Moses had to learn this law deeply, realizing that the burning bush could only be heard once he turned away from his daily routine and paid attention to the silence. Your current transition is forcing you to turn away from your old coping mechanisms so that you can finally hear the whisper of your true calling. But standing still is only the first layer of this ancient mystery, and many people stop here, remaining stuck in the desert forever. To truly break through the fog, you must understand what happens when the stillness itself begins to speak back to you in ways you do not expect. There is an ancient, hidden code buried within the Hebrew language that reveals what the Creator is actually doing while you are waiting in the dark. If you do not grasp this next hidden dimension, the stillness will transform from a sanctuary into a prison of your own making. Just as the Israelites grew restless and began to fashion false idols out of their gold, your mind will begin to create false narratives about your worth. The true secret lies in what happens to the human heart when it finally surrenders its need to control the timing of the universe. To understand this deeper mystery, we must look at another traveler of the Spirit, a prophet who was running for his life, completely exhausted by the weight of his mission. Elijah sat under a solitary broom tree in the wilderness, begging for his journey to end because the pressure of his transition was too heavy to bear. He felt entirely alone, convinced that his work had been a failure and that there was no clear path forward into the future. He was guided to a holy mountain, where a furious wind tore the rocks apart, an earthquake shook the ground, and a raging fire consumed the landscape. Yet, the scripture notes with absolute precision that the divine presence was not in the wind, nor the earthquake, nor the fire. This brings us to the second biblical secret for finding ultimate clarity, found in the first book of Kings, chapter 19, verse 12. After the fire passed, there came a sound of sheer silence, a still, small voice that spoke directly to the prophet's trembling soul. This secret is the principle of spiritual discernment through the whisper, teaching us that clarity never shouts above the noise of our panic. The Creator intentionally lowers His voice during your transition so that you are forced to draw closer to Him just to hear what is being said. In our modern world, when we feel lost, we tend to increase the noise around us, seeking answers in external validation, endless scrolling, or frantic planning. But the second secret demands that you do the exact opposite, requiring you to reduce the volume of the world until the divine whisper becomes audible. When you learn to tune your ears to this quiet frequency, the confusion of your transition begins to dissolve into a profound, gentle certainty. Elijah did not receive a loud, dramatic map for his future. He received a quiet reassurance that reignited his purpose and sent him back out with absolute clarity. Your current transition is a divine invitation to master this inner listening, to trust the quiet guidance that rises from the depths of your prayerful silence. It is a reminder that the path ahead is revealed one single step at a time, rather than in a massive, overwhelming blueprint. But even when you hear the whisper, a terrifying obstacle always remains, one that threatens to paralyze even the most faithful seeker on the path. Hearing the voice is pointless if your feet refuse to move forward into the mist where the next part of the story is waiting to be written. There is a final, crowning secret that changes how human beings interact with the unknown, a mystery that turns fear into absolute power. Without this third piece of the ancient puzzle, the whisper you heard in the silence will feel like a beautiful dream that you cannot recreate in your waking reality. The final secret requires a radical shift in how you view the concept of security itself, a shift that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. It is a truth that bridges the gap between the invisible realm of faith and the physical realm of your daily circumstances. To find this final piece of clarity, we must walk alongside a young man who was suddenly told to leave his father's house, his country, and everything he held dear. Abraham was given a divine command to go to a land that would be shown to him later, meaning he had to start walking before he even knew his destination. He was asked to trade his physical certainty for a spiritual promise, stepping out into a vast world with nothing but a word to sustain him. He could not see the end of the road, nor could he calculate the risks, yet he packed his tents and began a journey that would bless generations. This reveals the third and most powerful biblical secret to surviving transitions, found in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. The sacred text commands us to trust in the Lord with all our heart and lean not on our own human understanding. It promises that if we acknowledge Him in all our ways, He will make our paths straight, even if those paths currently look like tangled webs. This secret is the law of surrendered understanding, a direct challenge to the human ego's obsession with needing to know every detail before taking action. When you lean on your own understanding during a transition, you are trying to navigate a brand new landscape using an old, outdated map from your past. Your intellect can only calculate based on what it has already experienced, which makes it completely blind to the new things the Creator is doing in your life. By surrendering your need to comprehend the entire journey today, You open up space for divine intelligence to orchestrate circumstances beyond your wildest dreams. Abraham's clarity did not come from a physical map. It came from his absolute trust in the one who was holding the map. As you stand in your own season of transition today, recognize that being lost is simply the old version of you dying so that a wiser version can be born. You have learned the law of the divine pause, the power of the quiet whisper, and the absolute freedom of surrendered understanding. The path ahead of you is already prepared, and the fog is beginning to lift even as these words settle into your spirit. Trust the process, embrace the stillness, and step forward with the absolute confidence of a soul that has found its eternal anchor. Thank you for journeying through these sacred mysteries with me until the very end, allowing these truths to take deep root in your life. May your steps be guided, your mind be at peace, and your spirit be filled with the unshakable clarity of the divine.